Hey my friends, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by.
Oh my gosh, you'll never guess where we are. Do you know where we are?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Let's go figure it out. Is that cheese?
In this episode, we'll explore some fun things to do in Boston, Massachusetts. The Envoy Hotel is an award-winning hotel in the heart of Boston. It combines comfort and creativity to create a unique and welcoming experience. Be sure to check out the hotel's rooftop bar, a popular destination for both locals and visitors to the city. While nursing cocktails and enjoying the view, we tackled Boston by exploring things to do, hidden gems, and places to eat. The Old State House was built in 1713. The oldest surviving public building in Boston, served as the seat of the Massachusetts General Court until 1798. Once serving as a central meeting place and marketplace, Faneuil Hall was a prominent location in the heart of Boston. The hall was built in 1742 and expanded in 1826 to include Quincy Market. The Paul Revere House, built in 1680, was once owned by infamous patriot Paul Revere. It is the oldest remaining building in downtown Boston. A few minutes from the Paul Revere House stands a bronze statue of Paul Revere depicting Revere on his famous midnight ride. Built in 1729, the Old North Church is the oldest standing church building in the city and a National Historic Landmark, but it's also famous for its role in Paul Revere's midnight ride. St.Leonard is the first Roman Catholic church in New England built by Italian immigrants and has operated since 1873 and consecrated in 1899. In front of the church, a beautiful peace garden creates a relaxing place to take a break from the hustle and bustle of the city.
We are at the Long Wharf here in Boston. We're right across from the Customs House. So if you don't know, the Long Wharf is actually historic. This is where the enslaved Africans were brought into Boston and dispersed all over the city and all over the country.
What I remember as a child, learning about the big ships carrying people from Africa to here, and I do remember pictures and history books with rows of people at the bottom of the ship and actually rowing.
Rowing themselves.
Yes.
So not only were they slaves, they were actually rowing themselves to where they're going to be slaves.
If you're interested in learning more about the Boston Tea Party, the event credited with starting the revolution, the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum is worth visiting. For those looking for things to do in Boston for kids, the Boston Children's Museum is the perfect spot for a fun and family-friendly afternoon. So Boston is a city of historic firsts, like the Boston Common, the United States' oldest public park, which was purchased by the people to be used as public or common land. In the Boston Common, you'll find the Embrace, an art installation honoring the lives and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, who first met each other in the Roxbury neighborhood of Boston. We're working on a podcast episode for Highway Highlights about some of Boston's first, so if you want to check that out, or if you feel you're getting value from this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's head to Beacon Hill to discover more hidden gems and Boston's first. The Abiel Smith School, built in 1835, was the U.S.'s first public school for African American children. Educational programs are regularly held here to share the stories of those who fought for educational opportunities for African American children. Behind the school, you'll find the first African meeting house, which served as a school, a church, and a community meeting place, bringing together members of Boston's Black community throughout history, which it still does today. Holmes Alley is a narrow pathway that links Smith Court, where the African meeting house is, to South Russell Street. In Beacon Hill, these mazes of alleyways allowed residents to move skillfully and sometimes discreetly through and around the buildings, especially when bounty hunters authorized by the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850 posed a threat to the Black community. Pathways like this one were valuable for avoiding detection or arrest. The next stop is Roxbury, where we'll meet up with Colin Knight from Live Like a Local Tours Boston.
So we're here on Melnea Cass Boulevard. And Melnea Cass was a huge figure within the civil rights movement in the Boston area. But she gets into activism because she ends up being connected to William Monroe Trotter, who spent a lot of time here in the Boston area as well. And she had issues trying to find a job here in the area. And one of the things that ended up happening to her is that she went into a Black clothing store and tried to get a job when she saw the sign hiring. But the Black entrepreneur did not want to hire her and felt like it was better to have a white woman in the store selling products, so more people were coming to her store. This made her really mad, and she connected with William Monroe Trotter, and she started her first movement as an activist, right? And so that was super important when I think about her journey. So this is the Roxbury love story. It was created by Rob Pro Black Gibbs, who is also a Roxbury native and grew up in this neighborhood. On one side you have Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and on the other side you have Coretta Scott King. Dr. Martin Luther King came here in 1951 to study theology at Boston University, and his father was really good friends with Dr. Hester, who was the pastor of 12 Baptist Church, which was right here in this exact location in the early 1900s. But before that, it was in Beacon Hill, which was largely a Black community at one point. He really wanted to be amongst Black people. He grew up in Atlanta, which is a Black city, and so he wanted to stay in the Black community, which is why he decided to live in the South End. And so he preached right here in this spot here at 12 Baptist. He was an associate pastor for 12 Baptist. And Coretta Scott King was the lead singer in the choir at 12 Baptist as well. She went to the New England Conservatory and studied voice and violin. And how they met was through a receptionist by the name of Mrs. Powell. She actually was the person that Dr. Martin Luther King went to say, hey, who is this beautiful woman? I want to get to know her. And so Mrs. Powell gave the number to him. He called her on the phone and said, hey, I'd love to get to know you. And they had their first date in Roxbury South End. Really quick tidbit, one of the things she said, it was like, oh, he's kind of short, but man, he's really smart and intelligent. But yeah, so this is really an ode to not just Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but to the love of the two of them, and that he found love here in Roxbury. Is really, really significant to this area. One of the other significant things too is there was the March on Roxbury. The March on Roxbury happened in 1965, and it was the first civil rights march in the North. And it happened a couple of streets over on Columbus Avenue, and 20,000 people marched with Dr. Martin Luther King and local activists who helped to organize that march. People from all walks of life, down to the Boston Common where you see the Embrace Monument today. So in that gazebo is where he preached, and he talked about just this city and how they had to do a better job to take care of people of color within the city. You see behind us is Donna Summer, and so she's a native of Roxbury, grew up in the Mission Hill area, and was the queen of disco. She's right from this soil. So also in this building is Black Market, run by Chris and Kai Grant, and they're community activists. They also run an incubator for Black entrepreneurs where they throw events and then they allow vendors to table to be able to sell their products. And they have block parties every year. They just did the Summer of Love block party to honor Donna Summers along with this mural. So everybody came and they were dressed up in the 70s kind of disco era, and they had a really great time. There were vendors there that were able to kind of like sell their products, and this is something that they do each and every year. The year before that, they brought DJ Premier, who was one part of Gangstar. Guru was the other part, who also grew up here in Roxbury, who we all know is one of the greatest MCs, created some incredible music. And so every year, Black Market wants to give an ode to a different Roxbury native who made a difference or made history or made an impact, whether it was in music, or fashion or whatever it might be. And so really, really happy to have them here that were also Roxbury natives that understand that, we need to make sure that our culture is preserved. Yeah,
nice.
So.
The final step is Cambridge, where more of Boston's first with Noah Puterman from the Innovation Trail.
Not even a month ago, Massachusetts' entire 911 call system went down. And the only things that was working were these. Wow. And these were actually created way back in the 19th century. William Channing and Moses Farmer, two physician engineers. There were so many Renaissance people back in the day. Like, they didn't have one specialty. They were always trying different things. But anyway, these two guys get together and like, hey, let's take Morse's telegraph, electromagnetic telegraph system, and let's create a way to have an electric fire alarm system using that same technology. So you would have boxes like this all over town. And instead of the wires being underground like they are now, because electricity was so new, they actually had wires reaching all throughout the streets and buildings, and it kind of looked like this big web of interconnected boxes. And they all led back to a central box that would light up to let you know which box was sending the signal. It was all mechanically cranked and done. So like, just like a handle here, it mechanically creates a signal that is sent to the main box, and they're like, oh, it's coming from, such and such address on Main Street or wherever it was. So that all Boston is the first city to be willing to try it out in City Hall. They are going to install an electric fire alarm system, and it worked, and we now have that all over the world. Akamai, it's Hawaiian for clever or smart. The guy who founded it, Danny Lewin, his professor at MIT is Tom Layton. Goes up to his professor and says, hey, I got an idea for a company that delivers faster internet speeds. What do you think? And so his thesis is creating an algorithm for cloud-based computing systems. So when we think of the cloud, it didn't exist really before Akamai. And anytime that you use any sort of internet content, odds are it's coming to you from Akamai servers because they control more internet content delivery than any other company. So it may not be every moment of the day, but at least once a day, you're using Akamai servers. This is the famous Draper Labs. There was a guy named Charles Stark Draper who was the head of the Scientific Instrumentation Lab at MIT. And Draper was kind of a brilliant engineer. He figures out basically what we think of as automatic pilot today. It's actually inertial navigation. That's its real term. Inertial navigation.
Like as in the turns, like you feel the inertia?
Well, exactly. Yeah. Gyroscopes?
Right, yeah.
It uses that inertia and multiple gyroscopes to actually pinpoint your location. Because GPS is not going to work everywhere, especially before we had satellites. You see that metal thing in the case there? Yeah. That is actually the gyroscope navigation for the Apollo missions. That's their prototype.
Oh, wow.
Now, it should have four separate gyroscopes in there. But actually, they removed one so that the astronauts had to do some of the work themselves. NASA was like, listen, you built a system that's too good. We don't even need the astronaut to use it. This has to be a manned space flight. So, of course, NASA who almost set up their instrumentation research headquarters here in Cambridge until President Kennedy was assassinated. He was a Massachusetts boy, a Boston guy. He wanted NASA's headquarters to be here, but when he was killed in 1963, he was replaced by Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was from Texas. That's why it's Houston we have a problem instead of Cambridge we have a problem.
Wow.
But Draper, which at the time was the MIT Instrumentation Lab, they got the contract from NASA to develop the guidance computer system for the Apollo missions to go to the moon. But they took what they already were using in planes and aircraft, which by the way is basically the same thing we're using today. There's just more computers, computer processing involved now. It's just fancier, but it's the same basic technology. And they're going to apply that to space travel. And it's the only way that the astronauts are going to be able to not only get from Earth to the moon, but more importantly, get from the moon back to their spacecraft, back to the command module, so that they can then return to Earth. Because remember, you're not dealing with one spaceship. You're dealing with several ships that are constantly connecting and separating from each other throughout the course of the mission.
Right.
And one of the hardest feats to achieve, technically, was getting the lunar module off the moon's surface and reconnecting with another ship that's already in the moon's orbit. So everybody's celebrating on Earth, back in Houston, that the moon landing went off without a hitch. And then people are celebrating all around the world when they actually see the footage of the moon landing. Then you turn off your TV and you go to sleep. But here in Cambridge, the guys in the instrumentation lab and the women were freaking out because their most important part was still to come. Now, they believed in their systems. They believed they had, gotten exactly what they needed out of not only the navigation system, but also the engineering of the machinery itself. They knew that this was a fail-safe system. It could not mess up, or the astronauts' lives would be lost. But still, they were on pins and needles because you have that faith until it actually happens. You don't know. Yeah. But that was one of the most technically difficult parts of the Apollo mission to pull off, and it would not have happened had it not been for Draper and his lab.
Let's revisit all the neighborhoods and bring everything together by exploring places to eat. In addition to the beautiful hotel, we also had the opportunity to check out the hotel's rooftop bar, a popular destination for both locals and visitors to the city. Rooftop at the Envoy is the perfect place to enjoy a cocktail while taking in some of the city's best views. This is the perfect stop for anyone who enjoys southern classics like bourbon peach ribs, fried catfish bites, and lobster mac and cheese. Enjoy a hearty brunch from the brunch buffet menu, or stop in for dinner and embrace the timeless charm of this modern-day supper club. Grace by Nia is the third restaurant owned by Nia Grace to grace Boston Seaport, joining Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen and the Underground Cafe. The location also features a stage for live music, showcasing jazz, soul, and R&B artists. If you love music as much as I do, check out the full live schedule before planning your visit. After coffee, I've been told you can't come here without trying a lobster roll. For that, we head back to Quincy Market.
No, let's get 2 sandwiches.
What do you want to drink?
What, sorry?
What do you want to drink?
What do you want to drink? Schwatter?
Yeah.
Schwatter.
You got it.
Whether you're looking for a cozy cafe to start your day on the right foot or a welcoming and intimate dinner experience, proudly Black-owned, immigrant-owned, and women-owned, the team at Comfort Kitchen Boston has crafted menus that celebrate the flavors of the African diaspora, including jerk roasted duck, banana leaf roasted chicken, new fish curry, and many other mouth-watering options. Originally from Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, Fasika Café's owner, Dafar, is passionate about sharing his love for Ethiopian culture through his country's food. He is so dedicated to the authenticity of the flavors that Dafar and his wife travel to Ethiopia at least once a year to pick up spices in bulk. The result is a welcoming atmosphere and an incredible menu of traditional dishes that everyone should experience at least more than once. Tuscan Kitchen, which was established in 2010 with an inaugural genuine artisan Italian eatery in Salem, and has since become one of the most cherished restaurants here in New England. Plus, it's the perfect place to reflect on our time here in Boston.
A couple of my favorite things were definitely the comfort kitchen. So yeah, I love the food. Incredible. The attention to detail, the rice, there's crunchy stuff in there, like little pieces of vegetables in there. You know, they flavorful. They just took that whole rice and peas thing to a whole nother level. And the servers were fantastic. The cocktails were delicious. Like that cocktail that I had was so sweet. Oh my God.
Yeah, you had two.
The same one. Yeah, I had it twice. Yeah. That was absolutely delicious. Yeah, one of my favorite spots. In terms of food, what about you?
Yeah, I absolutely loved Grace. Atmosphere was amazing. I really enjoyed the jazz. I enjoyed energy and vibe. People were kind of all, you know.
Getting down, dancing, having a good time for sure.
Yes, and also the way how a room was decorated, chandeliers, like you can feel that Caribbean vibe.
There's so many places to see and so much history and so much diversity in how people who have made Boston home are able to bring their pieces of home into this city and make it their own, right? So the Seaport is very different from Little Italy. It's very different from Roxbury. It's very different from Cambridge, for example. So it's like you could really, there's a large variety of like just areas you could visit, neighborhoods, and there's something I feel like that will call to you based off of where you're at.
I will give a shout out to Colin and Roxbury. I love what he's doing over there. I love that upcoming type of vibe. I want to give a shout out to that because I see where he's going with that. I see where he sees that neighborhood going, and I really love how that is going to happen, like down the road. Maybe, who knows? I like how you asked him like a future question. So he has a vision. There's stuff coming in. Things are going to change. And I love that for him because I think that there's so much potential there and lots of history, lots of stories that come out of that area.
As I mentioned earlier, Boston is a city of historic firsts, from everyday items like the microwave and the telephone to Black history education and a little vaccine I'm sure you may have heard of. Click the video in the top right to watch that Highway Highlights episode. We'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.